the Super Celebrity Hotline, Dr. Waleed Phares, who's an anti-terrorism advisor to the U.S. House of Representatives and also author of The Coming Revolution, Struggle for Freedom in the Middle East. Is an excellent guest and very expert in these issues, but if I talk to him more than once a week, there's trouble in the world, and we have talked to him more than once a week. So there's trouble in the world here. Doctor, thank you very much for being with us. And let's start with, I guess, is this good news, clearly, for obviously the families of Pan Am 103 and for anybody who, seeks justice in the world and does not like tin horn dictators? This is a good day, and I guess that's all of us.
Is this good for America?
But is it good for America? Dr. Phares.
That's the question of the evening. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me today. It's a pleasure. It is a good day. Let me put it in perspective. Historically speaking, in terms of justice, as you said exactly, to the victims, and the victims are Americans first, and then second Europeans, but also Arabs that he has killed, and Africans. He was part of many coup d'etat, bloody coup d'etat. And, above all, from a Libyan perspective, the Libyan people. So from all that perspective, yes, Gaddafi was a bloody dictator for the previous 42 years, and his time was up. However, the measurement to know if, this was a success day for the future isn't going to be the past, that is Gaddafi. It's going to be who is going to be taken over in Tripoli. That's the crucial question of the day.
Right. Let's go back to him for just a second, because, on a day that he is killed and the dramatic videos coming out, it's interesting to watch the television networks all decide what the tolerances are for this, because clearly a lot of the last moments of Gaddafi's life were captured on, digital media here. So the question is, how much are we going to see of it? But you see him alive in his last moments, then you see his bloodied carcass, and it's pretty dramatic stuff. Since 1968, 1969, when he took over the country, he has been an agent provocateur in all kinds of things. I mean, we know him here. He's famous here in the United States for the Gulf of Sidra incident in 1981 and the disco bombing in Germany, and, of course, the downing of Pan Am 103 seemed to have been, either the fundraiser for that or, one of the architects of it. And we think of him that way. But as you're pointing out, he was involved in all kinds of trouble. Any kind of trouble you can imagine in the world, he found his way into to fund, to cheerlead for, right?
You could write a book. Somebody must write a book. It won't be me. I don't have time. But this dictator, who was described by the late Anwar Sadat as the crazy boy of Libya, had so much money, so much petrodollars for a small population. He overarmed himself. He tried to do a coup d'etat in Tunisia, another coup d'etat in Egypt. He sent weapons to guerrilla warfare across the continent. He tried to invade Chad to his south. Then he sent money and weapons to guerrilla forces during the war in Lebanon. Then he armed the PLO. I mean, I could go on and on and on, and I haven't begun what he's tried to do in Europe and against the United States, let alone, as I said, the most dramatic activity of Gaddafi was the killing of thousands of his own people in his own land.
Right. We were talking during one of the breaks here, an infamous story of his single-handedly killing the brother of one of his highest-ranking military officials, who has subsequently left the country, found his way to Europe, and has been cheerleading the European NATO to try to go get this guy, because Gaddafi with his own hands had killed this guy, the brother. And you hear these stories, you heard these things about Hussein and Gaddafi, very much cut from the same cloth, right?
Oh, absolutely. I would call him as the Saddam of North Africa. They're the same. Same behavior. Gaddafi a little bit crazier in his narrative. I mean, he would go to the United Nations and deliver, crazy speeches. That was not the, the norm of Saddam Hussein. But they were both genocidal. They were both suppressive. And
here in Chicago, he was a financial backer of Minister Louis Farrakhan.
He must have, we know that in the 90s he has been planning on sending hundreds of millions of dollars to groups within the United States, within the Americas. His action went as far as Guyana in Latin America. So, yes, he was in the business of trying to fund, radical ideologies, radical views, but also activities in the Middle East that were really violent in the Middle East.
I think he did. Didn't Farrakhan go and accept some, Medal of Libya or something?
And then just a few months ago, Farrakhan famously publicly scolded Barack Obama. Who are you to, he said, hey, brother, don't do this. Who are you to be going after Gaddafi?
Well, it would sound more like this. All right,
they were delegations out of the United States. It's known. It's in the archive that visited Gaddafi in Libya. And he was trying to stir trouble in the United States. I mean, he was trying to use any group for his own purpose.
And again, to your point, and this is going to let us transition to the future here, to your point, they had hundreds of millions of dollars annually coming into that economy, billions of dollars coming into that economy on oil revenues. And it has a population basically around the state of Illinois. I think the state of Illinois and Libya have about
half the size. It's about we've got about 13 million people. They had about 5 million, right? 6 million.
Yeah. So
twice.
Yeah. So it's it's actually the population of Cook County, I think, is a better way to put it.
Right.
So all right. So
with
now
2% of the world's oil.
Now that's pretty good. So if they've got all this money coming in, they have an ability to stabilize. Who, as you look at this as an expert on this kind of thing, as this revolution is now complete, I suppose. What's the best case scenario? Let's start with that.
Well, I don't think the revolution is complete. I don't think this was only a revolution. This was a revolt against Gaddafi. I don't want to break too many bad news, but we have to be very attentive and not let ourselves go and then be surprised 6 months down the road here. What is happening in Libya is that NATO, with the power of the United States, were the ones to break the backbone of Gaddafi's military force. No doubt about that. That's why the rebels were able to seize Tripoli and seize the other cities.
Right, and today, even in the microcosm, even today, he was trying to escape in basically a caravan of cars here, and it was a U.S. Predator drone strike that stopped that motorcade. And then it allowed the rebels to get to him. So to your point, yes, the United States certainly, and we talked to Rick Leventhal from Fox, who was spent a lot of time there, and said that any reporter, American reporter who's been there, will say, listen, these people, there is a pro-American sentiment on the streets of Tripoli at the moment. The question is, how do we keep that, and who are the good guys versus the bad guys there?
Yes, that's my next point. The map in Libya is this. It's not visible yet, but that's what it is. You have in the Transitional National Council, the interim government today, at least a third of the members and the ones they influence who are leaders or the bosses of the Islamist militias of Libya. And those militias are in control of most of urban areas, of most of cities in Tripoli, Benghazi, and other places. Then you have the seculars, bureaucrats, former, army officers of the Libyan army who rose against Gaddafi, and independents and tribes and others. The real challenge, the real race is going to be between the seculars and the new army and the militias. And the challenge on the ground is going to be, will the new army be able to disarm the militias? Because if the militias refuse to be disarmed and get all those sophisticated weapons, we're heading towards a bigger problem that will look more like Iraq, but even more like Somalia with more weapons. That's the real challenge.
Well, handicap the race for us, Waleed. What do you foresee?
It really depends on us. We are a little bit behind. I would say a lot of bit behind in the sense that we should have partnered with the military and with the bureaucrats and with civil society groups early on. We are minus 80. The militias are in control. I'm making the statement now, and we'll see in a few weeks, few months from now. They are, in fact, in control of most of the cities seized by the rebels. Now, the army of Libya...
It sounds like this isn't going to end well.
It's not. It's actually not ending well for the simple reason that we have not chosen our partners from the beginning. We came from the air, we came from the sea, fine. And the reason for why a group within the TNC said we don't want boots on the ground, it's not that they didn't want boots on the ground. In Bosnia, in Kosovo, in East Timor, everybody wanted boots on the ground. But because they knew that they would take from us the Air Force and the Navy power, and then they will seize the ground. And the chief guy who was supposed to be the commander of the armed forces was assassinated. Remember 2 months ago?
I do, yeah.
The general in Benghazi. So what was
the Islamists assassinated him.
Yes, sir. The militia took him out. We don't have a partner on the ground. We have taken out Gaddafi, and they will take over. It's very simple.
All right, so now these militias, because there's one school of thought that says that, you know, George Washington can come in here and take the Virginia 3rd and the Maryland 4th and the Connecticut 1st and put them all together and create an army of the Republic. Is that, in using these militias to try to coalesce them and then arm them, put them under the same uniform, train them concurrently, is that a possibility?
That's not what the path should be. Because if you gather and sew all these militias together, what are you going to get? A super Islamist jihadi army. Now, what you need to do basically is tell them thank you for your efforts. Now we have a central army that should actually operate for a transitional time under UN, because we supported them. There's a UN resolution making sure that there are no radicals in their army. And the militia should be disarmed, and on the individual basis, if they want to be part, and soldiers and officers, welcome. But you don't put the militias together. You create actually the force, which is going to create a neo-Taliban.
I hear you saying, though, there's nobody there capable of counteracting these militias. We don't really have a partner on the ground.
Yeah, at this point in time. And then add to it, there's something. The insurgency of Gaddafi is going to begin. I mean, those who have been dispersed. Now, Gaddafi as a regime is gone. It's over. But he will have cells like the post-Saddam people. And add to that they are in the western part of the country, in the southern part of the country, the equivalent of Iraq's Kurds. These are ethnic minorities who are going to call for their rights. And I'm going to give you two names now. We're going to hear about that. The Amazigh Berber population of the western part of Libya, they are armed, they were parts of the rebellion, and they will not go fundamentalist. And in the south, guess what? You have a black Libya, you have an African Libya federation of tribes, the Tubus, who are also going to say, we want our rights right now. So the future is not going to be that easy, and we need a real crafting of policy in Washington, D.C.
All right. Waleed Phares, thank you very much. Appreciate it. The Coming Revolution, Struggle for Freedom in the Middle East is the new book. Appreciate it, Waleed.
Thank you for having me.
All right.